Weather specialist John Wilson says there's warm air riding over cold air at the ground.
Cold air won't move, so what we get is light snow at first, and then the snowflakes develop into ice balls as the warmer air gets closer to the surface.
Then later this afternoon, we should be in the clear with everything expected to change into rain. Meantime, up to 4 millimeters of ice buildup is possible in Mount Forest, Arthur, and northern Wellington County. Now, there were no cancellations for school buses or schools today, but our local boards are changing the procedure for weather-impacted days. We've been seeing schools close if school buses weren't going out, but from now on, local public and Catholic schools will stay open as long as it's safe, even if school buses aren't sent out. According to local boards, this is a return to pre-COVID procedure. In areas around Guelph, like Erin and Dufferin County, school buses were canceled today. Jermaine Moss, City News.
City News time is 10:01. It's time for traffic and weather together on the ones. Here's Eva Fragiscados.
Good morning. We still have some freezing rain out there, so that is causing delays for drivers, of course, on the major routes. Eastbound on 7-8, minor delay as you approach Navzigger, and then 7-8 slows down again as it turns into 85. Northbound on Highway 85, you're going to find that moving slowly from about 7-8 all the way up towards University. And then southbound on 85, minor delays as well from south of Victoria Street to King Street. Eastbound Highway 7 heading towards the Guelph area overall looks pretty good. Looks like Highway 86 through Macton and Listowel. Looks like most of that volume has eased off. Eastbound on the 401, still quite slow going as you make your way through Cedar Creek Road, and then eastbound 401 slows again approaching Highway 8. And again, eastbound 401 delays as you approach Wellington Road 32 to just east of it. And again, from Highway 6 North to east of 6 South. Eastbound 401, you'll find delays again through the Milton area from James Snow Parkway on and off right through to about Mississauga Road. Westbound on the 401, minor delays through Mavis and Mississauga Road. And then westbound on the 401, you'll find it busy as you approach 6 South to just west of it. After that, moves a bit better. No other problems on your routes through Cambridge, but keep in mind, again, that freezing rain really will slow down your commute, so make sure you leave lots of extra time. Now the forecast with John Wilson.
Light snow changing to ice pellets, changing to freezing rain, then straight rain. Just depends on when that temperature can get above zero, and it could be early afternoon before it manages it. So there is trouble this morning with potential icing, and 3 degrees the eventual high comes and climbs further overnight and all the way to 13 tomorrow with showers, chance of a thunderstorm and windy, and then flurries in 1 after a cold front goes by Friday. Today's high 3.
And right now inside of our studio, we do have that rain falling -3, a wind chill of -10. Regional police are issuing a warning to the public following a break-in at the North Dumfries Community Complex. They say an unknown suspect gained access to a locker at that Greenfield Road facility, stealing a navy blue bylaw jacket. Now, that jacket has a North Dumfries Township Enforcement Officer patches on each shoulder, as well as Enforcement Officer on the back. They say that equipment could possibly be used to impersonate a bylaw officer. Now, anyone with concerns of an individual using police-issued equipment improperly is encouraged to ask for further identification or to call 911 dispatch to confirm the presence of an officer in that location. The township also noting that enforcement staff carry photo ID cards with the township logo and contact information. The break-in also being investigated. Anyone with relevant information being asked to contact police. City News 570 is CKGL AM Kitchener. News next at 10:30. I'm Luke Schultz, City News.
If knowledge is power, consider this show your Sword of Grayskull. Welcome to the Mike Farwell Show on City News 570.
Welcome back to the Mike Farwell Show here on City News 570, and welcome in to our viewers now joining us on Rogers TV Channel 20. Still to come for the remainder of the show at 11:30. Get your dialing fingers ready. It's a half hour of open lines, free phones with producer Paulie. That's coming up at 11:30. And at 11, Ontario to permanently set speed limits on some Ontario highways to 110 kilometers an hour. We'll be joined by an organization which thinks the speed limit should even be higher than that. That's coming up at 11 and at 10:30. on our weekly What's on Wednesday feature. We're celebrating 100 years of the Rotary Service Club. Well, right now, Grand River Transit, their first electric buses are set to hit the road in the near future. And joining us to talk about it is Neil Malcolm. He's acting director of transit at the region of Waterloo. Neil, welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
How many buses are we talking about here?
So we're looking at an 11-bus fully electric vehicle pilot. And right now we have between 275 and 300 diesel buses, or mainly diesel buses. So it's a small pilot, but we're looking at, getting prepared for the future of, how our service will be run and what type of vehicles we'll be purchasing going forward.
So how long is this pilot project going to run?
It'll probably run for 1 to 2 years. So right now we're in the phase of we're preparing to procure the vehicles. So we haven't ordered them yet. Right now we're waiting on some funding from the province and the federal government before we can go ahead and order the fully electric buses. Once that's in place, we would order the vehicles hopefully in the very near future, and it would take about a year for them to be delivered. So we'd probably see them arrive in the region early or mid-2023, and then we'd run a 1 to 2 year pilot with the fully electric buses to see how they perform, evaluate how they do on our current routes, and then make a decision or take a recommendation to regional council at that point to talk about next steps in procuring more fully electric vehicles.
Now, I remember with the LRT trains, there was some fitting that had to go on after we received the trains. Does anything like that happen with buses that come in?
No, so right now we're purchasing only hybrid electric buses. So Regional Council made a decision last year in 2020. Going forward, we would no longer purchase fully diesel buses. We would only purchase hybrid electric, and then at the same time we'd evaluate the fully electric vehicles through this pilot. So when buses arrive, it's not the same as some of our Ion LRV trains that require any further work. The vehicles arrive from the manufacturer. There's some outfitting with fare boxes and other minor equipment, but basically they're ready to hit the road when they arrive in the region.
Now, if I read correctly, a traditional diesel bus lasts about 14 years, if I recall correctly. Do we know the life cycle of an electric bus?
We don't for sure. There's a number of municipalities, a number of transit agencies in the province and around the world that are already piloting, are already working with fully electric buses. So we anticipate that the same range of life would be the same for hybrid and for fully electric, 14 years. That's our standard for diesel buses. We've had a handful of hybrid buses in the fleet for since 2008, and they are still on the road today. So they have lasted. They've proven that they can last, hybrid electric vehicles, and we'd fully anticipate that fully electric would last a similar timeline.
One of the concerns about electric vehicles in general is how long a battery can sustain a charge. Will a bus battery be able to sustain a charge for an entire operating day?
Well, so the short answer is no, but that's really what the pilot is to evaluate. Mm-hmm. So picture today, a diesel bus will go out on the road. It'll leave the garage at 4 or 5 in the morning, and it could stay on the road all day, serving the community, running various routes with operator changes at certain points throughout the day. A fully electric bus is a little bit different, and part of the concern, or one thing we need to really evaluate is the range. So what we would anticipate during the pilot is an electric bus would be charged overnight at the depot, and it would get enough charge that the next day it would go out and do a certain amount of work, as it would be on the road for a certain number of hours. Now, a fully electric bus couldn't stay on the road all day. Probably the range is between 200 to 400 kilometers, depending on the vehicle, depending on the battery, depending on the charge, and other factors, including the temperature, the climate, the weight of the vehicle in terms of the number of passengers. All these things impact the range of the electric bus. So through the pilot, we'll determine what routes can they run on, how long can they stay on the road during the day at any one time before they need to come back to the garage for charging.
So I'm assuming if this pilot is successful, that all buses will eventually be transferred over to electric. Is that the plan?
Well, right now, we'd probably take that back. We would have to take that back to regional council for further decision and discussion. Right now, the recommendation or the approved plan is that we're only purchasing the hybrid electric vehicles. So for the next few years, any new vehicles that we purchase will be hybrid electric, no longer fully diesel buses. And then while we evaluate the fully electric buses through our pilot, After 1 or 2 years of piloting the 11 electric buses, we take a report and recommendation back to Regional Council for a final decision on what we do next in terms of procuring more fully electric buses.
Electric vehicles tend to be more expensive than traditional vehicles. Will this affect fares at all?
It's not anticipated to affect fares. We're doing every year through our budget process, we evaluate the current fare structure and whether a recommendation for a fare increase should be taken to Regional Council. The buying different vehicles, we procure vehicles when they need to be replaced at the end of their life cycle. We buy new vehicles when we need them for expanded service. Electric hybrid and electric vehicles do cost more to purchase than diesel buses. Over the life of the vehicle, there is a savings in terms of fuel and other savings over the life of the vehicle that you don't achieve with diesel buses.
So if I hear the timeline right, we're looking at these buses being on the road in maybe early 2023?
Yeah, so right now, at best case scenario is we get the funding from the province and the federal government to procure these electric buses. It's about a 1-year order timeline, so we'd probably see them on the road, fully electric buses on the road in the region sometime mid-2023 is what the timeline we're looking at right now.
I appreciate your time this morning, Neil. I'd like to ask you, are you able to speak on the status of the lost bunny that we've been seeing on the news?
Yeah, it's been a great, not great that someone lost the bunny. That's unfortunate that someone hasn't been able to reclaim that. But our staff here with Grand River Transit are taking care of the bunny, are giving it a good home for the time being. Maybe someone will yet come forward to say that's mine and I left it behind at a bus stop. That would be the perfect outcome. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, we'll take care of the lost bunny and make sure that it has a home.
Does he have a name yet? I saw a naming contest a couple of weeks ago.
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I could probably find out and share that back with you, but right now I don't know if it's got a name at this point. We'll still call it Lost Bunny in the time.
Right. And for someone maybe who hadn't heard the story, maybe the Lost Bunny parent is listening, can you just recap what happened? I guess this was about a month and a half ago. Yeah. A stuffed bunny was left on a bus somewhere. Where was that?
That's right. It's about a month and a half ago. We found a lost bunny on, I believe it was at one of our bus shelters. Someone found it there. It had been left behind by probably a customer that, maybe perhaps someone with a small child that was carrying their beloved stuffed bunny. And at some point they lost it, and our staff found it, and we've given it a home here at Grand River Transit. Through social media, we've been reaching out, trying to find out if anyone knows who the owner is, if someone could come in and reclaim it because it's theirs and probably a loved stuffed animal. Mm-hmm. So maybe that will still happen. As of yet, it hasn't, but hopefully there'll be a really good outcome here in the end.
Great. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for your time this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Neil Malcolm, Acting Director of Transit at the Region of Waterloo. So yes, Grand River Transit is going to be testing a pilot project starting with 11 electric buses, fully electric buses. They currently have some hybrid buses on the road right now, have since 2008, I believe Neil was saying. But these 11 vehicles will be fully electric, and they have to purchase them and whatnot, but we should expect to see them on the road sometime in 2023. If you have a comment on this, that's great. 519-570-2545. Out of town, 1-800-570-5715 and star 570. John Doe, go ahead.
How are you doing today?
Good. How are you, John?
Oh, I'm alive and kicking everyone I can.
Uh-oh.
Including people who keep pushing this electric stuff. I moved down to Cambridge, or back to Cambridge some 30 years ago, Preston to be specific.
Right.
Now, before that, I was in Hamilton, and guess what? Hamilton had a very, very large number of all-electric buses over 30 years ago, and they had been in service for a long, long time.
Are these the ones with overhead wires, though? Like trolley cars?
Yeah, it's an all-electric bus.
Right.
Okay, it's got wheels. It's got just got two poles sticking out the back that run along wires. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here we go. An all-electric bus. We had them before. Why do you think they got rid of them?
Well, the technology's different today, though, John. You wouldn't need the overhead wire, though.
Well, why not? That way you don't have to worry about taking them back to the garage every couple hours and recharging them for 12, 14 hours. Run the wires just like they did in Hamilton, overhead wires, and you can run those all over the city. And then you can run these things on clean, non-polluting, coal-fired generating station-powered electricity all you want.
And these were buses? I've seen trains operate on that system. I've never heard of a bus operating on an overhead wire.
Yeah. You know, the big reason for getting rid of them, it was pretty unsightly because you had all these wires. Now, of course, we got the, what do you call that stupid train that runs back and forth between a couple of places?
The LRT?
Yeah, that's it. What's it running on?
I guess it would be electricity, yeah.
Yeah, where do you think it's getting the electricity from?
I think is it an overhead wire? I don't think they get it from the track like a subway, right? I actually don't know.
I really don't know. I don't pay too much attention to it. But one way or another, it's picking up electricity. If you want to go electric, all you have to do is either put in electrified rails or an overhead electrified wire for it to run on. Why do we need to try and get all this new technology that's going to work for a couple hours and park for twice that? The recharge time, the distance that it can travel, hook it up to a power supply and drive it.
All right, thanks a lot.
Never mind all this battery.
Thanks a lot for the call, John. Technology is always evolving, and I don't know a lot about electric vehicles. I'm sure they're always working on changing or improving the life cycle of the battery or how long it will hold a charge. I don't think anybody, I was going to say, I don't know if anybody is going to doubt that electric vehicles are better for the environment. There is I saw a story on one of my favorite TV shows a few months ago, CBS Sunday Morning, where they talked about the process that goes into making these batteries and the materials that are needed to be mined from the earth in order to make these batteries. And it's not, I can't remember what materials we're talking about, but making some of these batteries, because it's not the same type of battery that you would put in a flashlight or a kid's toy. It's a different technology. I don't know if it's lithium ion, I think is the small little batteries. I can't remember which type. But the batteries in a car are different. It's a different type of battery. And that can cause problems, some natural elements. And there are some environmental people who are concerned about all the material that needs to be taken from the earth in order to create these batteries that you put in electric vehicles. 519-570-2545, out of town 1-800-570-5715 and star 570. Starting in a couple of years, Grand River Transit will be putting on a pilot project with 11 electric buses on Waterloo Region's roads. Terry, go ahead.
Hey, Paulie, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, listen, I think electric vehicles is the way of the future. And I don't think we need electrical lines like previous caller was saying. I know right now people are concerned, well, what about if you have to replace the battery on electrical vehicles? They're expensive. I said, well, I remember buying one of the thin screen TVs when they first came out.
Yeah.
They were about $3,000. I remember I was a sucker and paid that much for one. Now I can go to Walmart and I can see the same TV, much more improved, better quality for like $250. So the prices are eventually going to come down. And the argument that I always get is people will say, well, if you get electric vehicles, everybody's going to be charging them at home. It's going to overload the power grid. Well, first of all, unless you're driving like long distances, if you're just a daily commuter, you're probably not going to be charging your car more than once or twice a week anyway, because those cars now have about 500 kilometers.
Right, if you're just
range.
driving around town, yeah.
But I remember, I'm from the old country, and nobody had refrigerators, and I know even over here on this side of the pond, people used to have ice boxes where you just get a big hunk of ice and you put it in. That's how you keep things cool. And then everybody got refrigerators.
Yeah,
and they said,
someone
oh my
would
God.
show up at your house every couple of days with a giant ice cube.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
no country. We didn't even have that luxury. We just had nothing. But anyway, over here, that's how it was. And then people started. I'm sure people said back then, "Well, you can't have refrigerators in your house. It's going to overload the grid. We're not going to get power." So, I think, like you said, things are evolving, and eventually, I think. I mean, there's always going to be room for the internal combustion engine. I guess people are still going to be, leaning towards those as long as as long as the manufacturers are putting them out there for us to purchase. But I think the way the future will be the electric vehicle, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Terry. Technology is evolving. People are worried about the cost. Electric vehicles are expensive at the beginning, but there are some studies that suggest that over the life of the car, you actually save money. Because you're not filling it up with gas, which, of course, gas, we all know how expensive gas is these days. Is this Erna?
That's me.
Go ahead, Erna.
Well, the guy who is on, what's his name, on television?
Who, me?
You on television?
Producer Polly.
Okay.
Mike Farwell show, yes.
I'm just wondering, you said you never heard of our buses having overhead wires.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Kind of funny because we had them all the time until I think around 1980 when they took them down.
Mm-hmm.
So he must be very, very young that he doesn't remember. Well, of course.
Thanks a lot for the call, Erna. Yeah, I'm in my early 40s, so I don't remember. I've seen pictures of our old train cars that we had driving up and down King Street, and I don't know if Waterloo Region ever had the electric buses, but I've seen photos, but I am too young to actually remember seeing it in person. Jason, go ahead.
I kind of wonder if, maybe they went with the all-electric buses. Maybe they could have things where sometimes they stop and they wait 15 minutes or whatever. Maybe at some of those stop wait points they could have like an overhead thing it could connect to. But then the other thing is, though, like a lot of these electric vehicles, too, depending where you are, a lot of them are running off of coal because it's a coal-fired electric generator that they're running off of. So I don't know. I picked up a truck there, and it runs off. You recycle stuff. You take this garbage out of the ground and you incinerate it, and it's really good for the environment. Recycle dinosaurs.
Yeah, Terry was bringing up that point a little bit too. People think, well, if you're worried about the environment, what do you're plugging in your car every night, but our power grid is still based on coal. There are talking points on both sides. I think eventually everything will become electric, probably 30, 40 years down the road. We'll take some more calls after this. This is the Mike Farwell Show on City News 570 and Rogers Television.
Want to get a word in? Call the Mike Farwell Show now. 519-570-2545. More of the show right after this on City News 570.
This hour of the Mike Farwell Show is...
This is the Mike Farwell Show on City News 570.
All right, we got a few calls on the line here. Let's try and get to a couple. Jerry, go ahead.
Hey, it's Tetris Pauly. How are you?
Good. Electric vehicles, what do you think?
Well, I don't want to get too pessimistic, but I just, I've heard some of the, people that deal with the electrical grid saying they are concerned that our current grid couldn't handle all the electric vehicles at this point. But one of the other concerns is, and again, it's, where our fuel prices are where they are, supply and demand. That's the excuse for the reason you're using. But once we all convert over to electricity, remember, supply and demand. So we have subsidized electricity right now. We're not paying the true cost of it. And I also say, people, look, the government's getting huge, and we're about to get hammered again on Friday with tax revenues off the.
Oh, yeah, the carbon tax. Thanks a lot, Jerry.
Hey, everybody, go fill tomorrow. Remember, it's 11 cents on Friday, unfortunately. Hey, I'm not just a messenger. But I'm saying the government's got to make up that revenue some other way. So, yes, we pay cheaper electricity now. My concern is, what is it going to be in 5 years or 7 years when the government's got to reach their hand back in your pocket and find revenue some other way?
Yeah.
And I do have somebody I don't know very well has a Tesla, and they spend a lot of time in Northern Ontario. And they hate driving that car in Northern Ontario.
Because there's no place to charge it.
Well, charging is one issue, but they say as soon as they turn their heat on in the winter, their range is dramatically reduced because you're not generating the heat from your engine, you're generating the heat from your battery. Same thing with air conditioning.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Sorry, Jerry, we have to go. We got to go to the news. Dawn and Brent, we don't have time to get to you, but we do have our free phones with Pauly segment coming up from 11:30 till noon. Feel free to call back at that time. This is the Mike Farwell Show on City News 570 and Rogers TV.
Look at that. Somebody found Mike Farwell's off switch. He's off for a few minutes. But the Mike Farwell Show returns after this on City News 570. Simulcast on Rogers TV, Cable 20.
This hour of the Mike Farwell Show is...
This is City News 570, everywhere.
Right now, outside of our studio, a cloudy sky, -3, a wind chill of -10. I'm Luke Schultz of the City News 570 top story. Advocates say the $86,000 licensed childcare spaces being promised by the Ford government as part of its deal with Ottawa may not be enough to meet demand. That pledge was made as part of the $10 a day childcare agreement between the provincial and federal governments, which will see childcare's fees cut in half by the end of this year. The childcare policy expert says by the end of the year, the province will need an additional 200,000 spaces, and adds that number will rise to 300,000 by the time fees drop to $10 a day in 2025. The executive director of the group Childcare Now says another issue is being able to recruit and retain staff, given the low wages for early childhood educators. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is going to the Williams Lake First Nation in BC today as part of his government's reconciliation efforts. Trudeau says the discovery of unmarked graves there and at other former residential school sites across the country has highlighted the horrors of our past and reawoken deep wounds and trauma among Indigenous peoples. Chief Willie Sellers says reconciliation includes long-term funding for the investigation of former government-funded church-run institutions, as well as supports for the mental health and well-being of residential school survivors. Looking now to Ukraine, the Russian military is now focused on the Donbas region in the eastern part of the country, where Russia-backed separatists have fought Ukraine forces since 2014. But despite statements that it was scaling back operations around Kyiv, officials report 30 Russian shellings of residential areas and civilian infrastructure in the past 24 hours. President Volodymyr Zelensky told the Norwegian parliament today that Russia wants to destroy the foundation of Europe. Follow City News 570 on Twitter at City News KIT. News next at 11 o'clock. I'm Luke Schultz, City News.
He's driving the motorcycle, and we're just sitting in the sidecar, along for the ride. We return to the Mike Farwell Show on City News 570.
Welcome back to the Mike Farwell Show here on City News 570 and Rogers TV. Producer Paulie in with you today. Mike Farwell is back tomorrow. Well, it is our weekly What's on Wednesday feature every Wednesday at 10:30. We talk about different things happening in the community, highlight some of the different events. And this segment, we have two guests on the line. We have Louise Gardner, who's past president of Kitchener Rotary, and Everton Wilmot, who's the incoming president of the Rotary Club of Kitchener Westmount. And we're talking about a couple of things. First of all, the 100th anniversary of Kitchener Rotary. Louise, this has got to be very exciting.
Oh, I am stoked. We are getting close. Our charter actually happened on the 1st of June in 1922. So our official celebration is going to be on June the 27th, and it's going to be in the ballroom at the Crown Plaza, downtown Kitchener. And we've had so many celebrations so far, and we've got more coming in the fall. We've got some announcements that we're doing some major projects with the city of Kitchener. So lots happening in our 100th year.
So, Louise, I mean, we all, there's a few different service clubs in different communities. What is Rotary all about? What's your mission?
Wow, that's a loaded question. So early in the morning. I would say that we are predominantly about servicing the community above ourselves. We want to be known as people of action. We want to be known in our local communities, whether that would be Kitchener-Waterloo, the region, the province, Canada, the world. But we also do a lot externally, internationally. So we do community service and we do international service. So that differentiates us, because a lot of the great organizations that support Waterloo Region do a lot for our local community, but we do both. And so one of our major international is polio eradication, and we have been working for a large number of years, and we're this close to eradicating polio in the world. And we donate money to that. We have hands-on projects. We both Kitchener Westmount and Kitchener have had club members that have gone down and inoculated children in Mexico or in India or wherever it's needed. So it's such a wonderful organization.
I thought polio was already eradicated. I didn't know until just the very moment that it still does exist in some third world countries.
Yes, there are a few countries. Pakistan is one of them. Afghanistan, of course, but the cases are very, very low. They're in the 20s right now, where they used to be thousands a year. I mean, we've been eradicated in North America for a very long time, but as you say, those third world countries are still struggling a bit. Some of it is around their their cultural beliefs that, it's not the right thing to do. Others is just getting to them. And it's not an easy, give one dose and done. So there's a few things around it, but we're at it. And one day soon we'll be able to say the world is polio free.
So if someone wants to become a member of Rotary, what type of time commitment is involved in something like that?
Well, we all the clubs in KW have a weekly or a bi-weekly meeting, and they're usually about an hour in length. Some are over Zoom, some are in person, some are a hybrid combination of both. We meet on different dates and times, and we have different projects that we work with. And so outside of coming to a weekly meeting, which isn't mandatory, but we have wonderful speakers. We just, in fact, had an amazing presentation on Monday evening with a new Palestinian foundation that is happening at the University of Waterloo. And there's going to be this amazing course that students will be able to take to better understand Palestine and what is happening over there and how it affects Canada. So we have these amazing speakers. And at the end of the day, you do your, weekly or bi-weekly meeting, and we have some committees you're going to want to work on. You're going to want to help a better tent city like we're doing, or do this youth project that Everton's going to speak about. So lots on the go.
And when I think of a service club, I think it's something that people who are older, maybe retired, would take up. But younger people are also invited too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Our youngest Rotarian currently is 25 years old, Marissa Watkins. And, you just want to be part of an organization that loves to give and loves to do things. And as long as you're that person, we're happy to have you. And we love diversity. That's what we're all about. So, the more the merrier, the younger, the older, wherever your culture is, we're here for you.
So Everton Wilmot is also on the line with us. Everton is incoming president of the Rotary Club of Kitchener-Westmount. Everton, welcome to the program.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Now, you're here to talk about the upcoming Rotary Game for Life Day. What is that all about?
Well, it's for youth, kind of grade 8, grade 9. One of the things we found is a lot of kids, students, when they're finished school, they have these great expectations. When I graduate, I'm going to buy myself a Lambo, and we know how realistic that is when you finish school. So we've put together a program where the students get some financial literacy. The game of life is, if you think of the game of the board game, the game of life, the students move around, and we have corporate partners from in our community who will teach them a little different things. So they will, for example, each student will get a profile. They've graduated school, they're working full time, and this is their monthly salary, or they have a child, or they don't have a child. All different scenarios we see in life. And then as they move around the game board and they come to the different corporate partners, they will learn and understand. So, for example, we'll come to a car dealership, and our partner will tell them what it's like with cars, new, used, pros, cons, financing. And then before they move on, they make a decision if they're going to purchase a vehicle or lease, and then see how it affects their monthly income. And as they move around, all the way around, pharmacy, restaurant, entertainment, education, going to the gym, all sorts of different areas. At the end of it is to see how much do they have left,
right,
for the month, and what's the next step? Groceries, the whole bit.
Is this an online event or is it in person?
It's in person. It'll be at the Family and Children's Services. And the kids will actually move around together in small groups, divided out to experience it and be able to discuss among themselves in making a decision.
And is there a cost to participate in this?
No cost for the students who are part of it. It is covered by the Kitchener-Westmount Rotary and our supporting partners. And
so what date is this happening?
It's happening on May 14th.
May 14th. And if people want to get involved, how do they sign up? I'm assuming they can still do that?
Yeah, we have on our website, rotarykw.com, there's some information there, and organizations, if they want to sign up some kids or there are other kids out there who have interest, they can sign up there, and we'll contact them for further details.
I really like this idea because, kids aren't always taught financial literacy in school. So this is a really great idea. I had no idea that something like this was happening. That's really cool.
Excellent. Yeah, we're all service above self and helping our community, and one great way is start when they're young. If we teach them young, then our community can benefit down the road.
And Louise, this event coming up at the Kitchener Crowne Plaza, is that just a Rotary event, or can the general public participate as well?
No, that one is a Rotary event.
Okay.
We're going to have some where the general public will be invited, which will be later in the fall when we do
great.
Our program with City of Kitchener at Victoria Park. But this one is Rotary and past members and current members. So it's a way for us to celebrate our history within our group. So we're pretty excited. We'll be sending out some invitations to, our mayor and the people that have been around. I know Mike Farwell's been very supportive of Rotary, so I'm sure he's going to get an invitation dropped in his inbox as well. But we're pretty stoked about it. One other thing I just wanted to say before we close off is remember that you can always find out more about all 5 Rotary clubs, and there's links through to the individual websites at www.peopleofactionkw.ca.
That's great. Okay, Louise and Everton, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you.
We're happy to be here.
Louise Gardner and Everton Wilmot. Louise is the past president of Kitchener Rotary, and Everton Wilmot is the incoming president of the Rotary Club of Kitchener Westmount. And the Rotary Club of Kitchener is celebrating 100 years this year. And Everton was talking about this event coming up. It's the Game for Life Youth Day. And that's coming up Saturday, May 14th. And that's at I think he said it was at was it the family? You know what? I can't remember where it is. Was it Family and Children's Services building? I can't remember. But you can find out more about that at rotarykw.com. And it's a program for young students, grades 7, 8, maybe 9, to help learn financial literacy, budgeting, how a paycheck works and how you need to budget that paycheck over your 2-week period. It's a really cool idea. I really like this idea. And I wish I had taken a course like that when I was that age. So it's the Game for Life Youth Day coming up Saturday, May 14th. You can find out more about it at rotarykw.com. This is the Mike Farwell Show with producer Paulie filling in on City News 570 and Rogers TV.
We know you have an opinion, so call the Mike Farwell Show, 519-570-2545, or toll free, 1-800-570-5715 and star 570.
This hour of the Mike Farwell Show is brought to you.
official celebration is going to be on June the 27th, and it's going to be in the ballroom at the Crown Plaza, downtown Kitchener. And we've had so many celebrations so far, and we've got more coming in the fall. We've got some announcements that we're doing some major projects with the city of Kitchener. So lots happening in our 100th year.
Louise Gardner is past president of Kitchener Rotary. We were also joined by Everton Wilmot in the last segment. He's the incoming president of the Rotary Club of Kitchener-Westmount. And again, just one more time to promote this event that's coming up on Saturday, May 14th. If you have a youth and you want to teach them about financial literacy, grade 7, 8, 9, in and around that grade, it's called the Game for Life Youth Day. Saturday, May 14th, absolutely free to attend. You can find out more information about that at rotarykw.com. Very cool idea. We've been talking about this quite a bit on the air this week between this show and Kitchener Today. I heard Larry Fedoruk mention this the other day on his show. And Larry, by the way, is also coming up today on Kitchener Today from noon till 3 about the Oscars and more specifically the slap heard or seen around the world. I have a couple of Oscars-related news items here. Now, many people are wondering if this was a staged event because the ratings for the Oscars have been going down in recent years. Well, the ratings have come out for the Oscars, and the ratings are up from last year, but it's still the second worst ratings ever. So last year was the worst. The ratings are up this year, but last year was the worst ratings ever. Will Smith's slap of Chris Rock aside, the Oscars broadcast Sunday seemingly didn't have much to draw viewers despite producers' best efforts to shake things up. While the Academy Awards improved its ratings from last year's pandemic-affected show with an estimated 15.4 million viewers, up 56% from 2021. It was the second lowest viewership in history. Among the changes made to try and boost the ratings were removing 8 less attention-grabbing categories such as film editing, production design, and makeup hairstyling from the broadcast and allowing fans to vote online for their favorite film to be recognized during the show. This year's Oscars was hosted by 3 women, Wanda Sykes, Amy Schumer, and Regina Hall. So ratings are up from last year, but they're still the second lowest rated Oscars of all time. So how do people feel about what happened between Will Smith and Chris Rock? Well, there's a poll out. There's a poll out for everything, isn't there? By now, pretty much everyone has probably heard about the Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. As we told you, Will has apologized to Chris. We did mention that briefly on the show yesterday. But that hasn't stopped folks from debating about what went on and how do people really feel about how it went down. Well, 61% of people say Will Smith was wrong for hitting Chris Rock. 21% insist he was right. Well, 19% are undecided. 64% of men think Will is wrong, as do 57% of women. 19% of men think he was right, while 23% of women feel the same. 70% of people believe Will should be able to keep his Oscar, because that's been part of the debate as well. I thought I heard this. I think this was the first Oscar Will had ever won, so it's a big moment for him. As for generations, younger generations are the least likely to say Will was wrong. In fact, only 46% of 18 to 34-year-olds think Will was wrong, while 27% think he was right. So, and this is dividing people online for sure. It almost seems to be 50-50. People wonder about, who is in the right. Yeah, should Chris Rock have made the comment? Probably not. But did the punishment fit the crime? I don't think so either. And what does this say, too? Like, if you're not happy about something someone says, you can just go slap them in the face. It sets a bad precedent. Grant wants to weigh in on something. Grant, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe he should just give Chris Rock the stare, and then afterwards maybe walk up to him and say, "Hey, brother, this wasn't cool."
Yeah, that's what I think we should have done. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a big, and like they've already stated that there's kind of a rocky thing between the both of them.
Mm-hmm. I think there's some history between them as well. I don't think they like each other.
And maybe whoever's part of this getting the Oscars organized, maybe they'll think twice and have a talk with these entertainers and say, you know what, that was not very tasteful.
Yeah.
And if my wife's got a disease that she's dying from, I'm probably going to get pissed off.
Yeah.
Most guys will, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are two sides of the story, Grant, of course. And I was mentioning this really is dividing people online and on the phones here, too. Andre wants to weigh in. Andre, go ahead.
Good morning, Producer Paulie. I've been itching for this one because what I said that I was against, just like the pool. But I still want to stand up for Mr. Will Smith because I've been watching him since I was a kid like him when Prince of Bel-Air. He's a nice gentleman. And, I'm a big fan since I became blind of his movies because they're very emotional, right? I think it is 7 Pounds and I Am Legend. He is you don't even hear nothing negative about him, right? And like I said, violence is never a solution. Two wrong doesn't make a right. And the reason why I'm calling is to say hat up to Mr. Will Smith for being a man and to say that violence is poison, and we move on from there.
That's great. Yeah, Will Smith has seemed deeply apologetic in the days since that happened. And I do think his apology is genuine. Now, what's interesting, Chris Rock has actually benefited from this a little bit too. His Chris Rock's Ego Death World Tour kicks off tonight with a show in Boston. And he has yet to speak about the incident that occurred at the Oscars between him and Will Smith, but ticket sales for Chris Rock's tour are way up, and the prices have gone up as well since that event on Sunday. At this point, the Friday show, doesn't say where that is, the Friday show is sold out. So all of a sudden, people have bought tickets for Chris Rock's tour, which coincidentally starts tonight. Maybe that is fuel to the fire to some people who think that maybe this was somewhat staged as some sort of a publicity stunt because Chris Rock tickets are going through the roof and out the door. And maybe you heard this as well yesterday. Jim Carrey is really the article says Jim Carrey slaps Hollywood for giving Will Smith a standing ovation. Jim Carrey thinks that Chris Rock should file a lawsuit against Will Smith. He was also appalled at the standing ovation Smith got after the slap. He stresses that there are other ways the situation could have been handled without violence. So everybody is weighing in on this issue, it seems. We have news coming up, and after that, you may have heard this on the news yesterday, Ontario to permanently set speed limits at 110 kilometers an hour on some of Ontario's 400 series highways. We're going to be joined by an organization next who thinks the speed limit should be even higher than that. Chris Kilmick from stop100.ca will be joining us after the news. This is the Mike Farwell Show with producer Paulie filling in on City News 570 and Rogers TV.
CKGL AM Kitchener.
Broadcasting live from the boardwalk.
Breaking news, traffic, and weather.
When you need to know, keep it on. City News 570.
This hour of the Mike Farwell Show is brought to you by David.
This is City News 570 everywhere.
It is 11 o'clock, cloudy, -3, wind chill, -10. Good morning. I'm Paul McPhee with the City News 570 top story. Motorists in Waterloo region and surrounding areas dealing with a mixed bag of weather today. We've had everything from snow to rain to ice pellets to freezing rain. A special weather statement remains in effect, with Environment Canada saying it will all change over completely to rain later this afternoon as the temperature climbs above freezing. City News Time, 11:01. Time for traffic and weather together on the ones. Here's Eva Fragiscatos.
Good morning. We've got a new problem westbound on the 401. It's west of Highway 6 North. It's right at Wellington Road 35 in Cambridge. The right lane blocked because of a collision. Emergency crews and MTO crews are on the scene. As a result, it's jammed up from west of 6 South all the way through to those problems. So you're looking at about an almost 6-kilometer backup right now. Make sure you leave yourself lots of extra time through there. Plan an alternate if you can. You can always take Regional Road 34 as an alternate route to the 401. It is moving a little bit better. Keep in mind, we've got freezing rain and we've got icy road conditions and wet road conditions in some areas. So be careful out there today. Eastbound on the 401, it still is moving well through the Cambridge area, but then it does slow down from James Snow Parkway right through to east of Mississauga Road. Highway 78 through Kitchener, Waterloo through the New Hamburg area. At this time, I'm not seeing any collisions or problems. It looks like Highway 7 through Guelph is also moving quite well. And Highway 85, both directions through the Waterloo area up towards St. Jacobs, not spotting any major slowdowns or collisions at this time. Now with the check on the forecast, here's John Wilson.
3 degrees with a combination of light snow turning to ice pellets and freezing rain in turn. And then we go above freezing and it's just straight rain. And then that quits this afternoon for a while. 3 degrees is the high eventually. It'll take a while. 3 degrees climbing overnight and then 13 at its peak tomorrow. Briefly, and then we drop like a stone again. Windy, showers, maybe a thunderstorm with the cold front. Flurries in 1 for Friday. Today's high 3.
And right now inside the City News 570 studio, cloudy, -3. The wind chill is -10. The Ford government plans to introduce legislation today to tackle the housing crisis. City's Richard Southern with what it may look like.
Ontario's housing minister will introduce legislation at Queen's Park today to increase the amount of homes available. This is likely to be based on the Housing Affordability Task Force, which published a report in February of this year calling for 1.5 million new homes to be built within the next 10 years. To do this, the report calls for more density. It says zoning laws should be amended to allow up to 4-story buildings to be built on lots currently zoned for 1 2-story home. Right now, 70% of land in Toronto is zoned for detached or semi-detached homes. This could see that amended. The government is also increasing the foreign buyers tax to 20%, up from the current 15%, to try and crack down on speculation. Home prices in Ontario have nearly tripled in the last 10 years. Richard Southern, City News.
Former Chief of Defense Staff General Jonathan Vance has pleaded guilty to one charge of obstruction of justice. Vance's lawyer, Rodney Seller, confirmed the plea during a virtual court appearance today, in which the former Canadian Armed Forces commander appeared by video. Military police charged Vance in July following a months-long investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct. Vance was not charged with any inappropriate sexual misconduct. In sports, the Toronto Raptors returned to the hard court hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Raptors coming off a 115-112 home victory over Boston on Monday night. Listen live to all the action on City News 570. Pregame begins at 7 o'clock. Be the first to know your news your way any time of day. If it's happening in Waterloo region, you'll find out about it on City News 570 and at kitchener.citynews.ca. News next at 11:30. I'm Paul McPhee, City News.
Every day is a new battle, so let's arm you with the information you need to survive this day. This is the Mike Farwell Show, simulcast on Rogers TV, Cable 20.
Welcome back to the Mike Farwell Show here on City News 570. Producer Paulie in with you today. Mike Farwell is back tomorrow. Still to come in a half hour, open phones or free phones as we're calling it with producer Paulie, or free phones with Farwell, because it is the Mike Farwell Show. So get your dialing fingers ready. Anything you want to talk about from 11:30 till noon is fair game today? Well, Ontario has announced, the province, that they are going to permanently set speed limits on some of our highways at 110 kilometers an hour. Now, we're joined now by Chris Klimek, director and founder of Stop100.ca. And based on their website, we'll ask them about it, 110 is too low. So we'll find out. I'm very interested in Stop100.ca. Chris, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Welcome. Good to be with you.
First of all, tell us about Stop100.ca.
So we started this 10 years ago. Now we have about 25,000 verified supporters on our various mailing lists and our Facebook page as well. Mm-hmm. And our mission was very simple. We are calling for proper, honest, and reasonable speed limits on the 400 series highways, in accordance to the actual driving speeds that we practice on our highways. Mm-hmm. So we want the government to recognize the speeds that we are currently practicing, and also we want our speed limits to be in accordance to global practices. So over 60 jurisdictions around the world are posting 120, 130. This is what we believe is proper for Ontario as well, because we are no different. We are the same as humans, everybody else, and our vehicles are the same as everybody else's.
So I think I'm safe to assume that this announcement of 110 kilometers an hour announced yesterday, you'd like to see it higher. That's not high enough.
Well, we have had glimpses of this coming, obviously, because there's been this pilot for the last 2 years, since 2019, so 2.5 years. So the government has been, quote-unquote, piloting 110. So this wasn't coming, as a big surprise to us. But nevertheless, our mission isn't stopping. And this is good and bad news. Basically, good news is that the law has finally changed. So we have finally abolished 100 kilometers an hour. So there is a new number on the books. That is a good progress. That is some sign of movement. The bad news is that it's not going nearly far enough, and it's still going to declare you and I a lawbreaker the moment we get out onto the highway, because most of us are doing anywhere between 115, 125. These are the rough, speeds that have been collected. Data has been collected for many years.
And that's what I've heard a little bit over the last day or so since this announcement was made. That so right now the speed limit is 100 and people drive 115. If it's 110, do you think people would just drive 125? Does the data bear that out?
Well, the government's own admission in the statement that they released yesterday actually disputes that, which is a good thing. They're basically saying that the new stretches that they were piloting did not produce any higher speeds and did not produce any increased fatality rate, which is fantastic. This is what Stop100.ca has known for many years. We've known this for a long time. So we did not really need to pilot that, and this did not come as a surprise to us. But one general statement I can give you is that basically people do not drive faster than they feel comfortable with. Okay, so people will always choose a comfortable speed for them to drive at. So any increase to the speed limit, which means getting it proper to the honest and reasonable speed limit, does not mean by any standards that anybody will be going faster. We will simply be going more legally. That is the whole objective.
What would Stop100.ca like to see the speed limit set at here in Ontario?
Well, so again, there's two ways of deciding that number. It's not a number that I would come up with. It's not a number that any politician should be coming up with. We basically allow the road engineers to get out on the highway to basically set up, speed measuring equipment, and they collect the data. And the data we have seen for the last 10, 15 years from our highways suggest that the 85th percentile speed is 125, roughly 125, even 126 kilometers an hour on the rural open stretches of 400 series highways. This means that then the engineers take that number and they'll decide whether it's 120, maybe 130 in some maybe more straight stretches and safer stretches. And that is the speed limit that is apolitical. It's a scientific speed limit that has nothing to do with any party, any association. It's basically a proper speed limit like we see in Austria, we see in Sweden, we see in the Netherlands, all across the globe, including the United States of America.
Your website has lots of useful statistics on it, and it looks like when you talk about speed limits in other countries that do have higher speed limits than Canada, higher speed limits actually lead to safer highways. Is that right?
Well, so the way you look at this is basically you look at the traffic flow. So if you are posting an unreasonably low speed limit, an incorrect speed limit of 100 kilometers an hour, you may have a situation where on a 3-lane highway, the right lane is sometimes left open for a weird reason, but the reason is you allow people to merge. So, I mean, some drivers choose to leave that lane open, which is incorrect, but let's assume that's the fact here. Then the middle lane is occupied by somebody who wants to stick to the law, okay? So that person will traffic is going 115, 120, 125, then that lone person sitting at 100 kilometers an hour is causing a dramatic situation on the highway because people are now slowing down, they're slamming on their brakes, they have to look for a way to pass that person, either on the left, either on the right. So when you create these sort of, political incorrect speed limits, you're actually creating a lot more dangerous situations on the highway. You may have been in a situation like this where you had to brake for somebody in front of you who simply was going too slow for the conditions of the highway, right? But that is because that person is trying to obey this incorrect speed limit, which is why correct speed limits actually create safer highways, and they, even as per the government's admission, do not increase the fatality rates by any number.
On your website, you mentioned, I think it was the state of Montana, experimented with no speed limits for a few years in the late 90s. What was the result of that?
Absolutely. Montana, just like Germany is a country with no speed limits. Its fatality rate is very, very, very small. People there are allowed to drive 150, 180, 200, 250, whatever you'd like to do. Fatality rate is no different than a fatality rate in Austria, Sweden, the Netherlands, and many other countries. Very similar, on par with these countries. Montana also was a very sad situation here for us because Montana, as you said, did not have speed limits on many of the roads, not just highways. Even the secondary highways did not have speed limits. And it was abolished for, again, a political reason. One trooper pulled over a driver for something he believed the driver was doing, unlawfully, driving too fast, even though there was no speed limit. And that started a court battle. And the court decided that basically you cannot have no speed limits. You have to have a speed limit. And why is that if the result was actually very safe? Well, the statistics proved later when the speed limit was installed after this court battle that the fatality rate actually did not go down in any way. In fact, in some years, the fatality rate went up after the speed limit was installed from the previous no speed limit situation.
And I also understand there's benefits for the driver as well. More specifically, you don't have to worry about getting a ticket when you hit the speed limit on the highway.
Right. So again, the data is showing us that the travel speeds are not changing, which is a good thing. We are basically more comfortable. We are going to keep more money in our pockets. So the economical benefit will be huge because, as you know, one ticket here or there for actually driving safely. Let's say you're driving at 122, 123, 125, and you have a police officer who decides to pull you over that day. It's simply at his or her discretion, right? Then that affects your pocketbook. You lose $200-300. Then your insurance rate may increase for many years. These are financial consequences, not to mention the stress we endure by having to look out for the police, slam on our brakes, which is always the situation where when you see a cruiser up ahead the road. So we want driving to be pleasant and stressless, and we want to use the highways the way they were intended to be used.
Chris, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Chris Klimek is director and founder of Stop100.ca Drivers Association, weighing in on this story. Maybe you heard it yesterday, that Ontario has announced that, I don't know when it's going to start. I imagine fairly soon, I guess, as soon as they can get the signs changed, I guess, that the speed limits on some highway sections will be set at 110 kilometers an hour. And you heard Chris say that. He has an organization called stop100.ca. Maybe they should change it to stop110.ca because now some of the speed limits are 110. He thinks that the speed limit should be set at 120 or even 130 because at the end of the day, people end up driving at the speed limit they are comfortable with anyway. 519-570-2545 out of town, 1-800-570-5715 and star 570. Is this really on the screen, Jordan? Ketchup Kyle. Go ahead.
You put it this way.
He typed up Ketchup Kyle on the screen.
Hey, okay, so here's my thought. I love the idea of raising the speed limit. I mean, I've driven throughout the whole country, United States, Canada. Even when I go down to the States to visit my friends in Oklahoma, speed limit's 75, 85 miles an hour. As a truck driver, though, it kind of makes me nervous that they're going to increase the speed when we're still all governed at 105 kilometers an hour.
Oh, because they put like limiters on your speedometer, don't they?
Oh, yeah, it's controlled by there's like a governor, so it's electronically controlled. So I can hit the foot to the floor and I'll only do 105 max, right? Is
that easy to change, or do they literally have to go into each individual truck? Because they can't have you set now what is below the speed limit. That wouldn't make sense.
Right. So, I mean, it's all government controlled. So if I try to get that taken off or whatever, I get massive trouble for it, right? So I just leave it. But
right.
It's a safety thing. Like if some guy's coming up to me, like let's say I'm in my transfer truck on the right-hand side doing 105 now, and they change the speed limit to 110, some guys, coming up at 120, 130 kilometers an hour behind me and hits me because I'm technically now lower than the speed limit.
Yeah.
It's not really that safe, right? So I'm looking at it, well, then if they're going to do that, you might as well raise our governors on the truck at least another 5 kilometers, maybe 110 or something, right? Because in all over Canada, Winnipeg and stuff, the Trans-Canada Highway is 110.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're way behind in this, right? But I'm just looking at that perspective, as a safety point of view, because I don't want some guy, rear-ending my trailer.
Yeah.
I'm like a tank, right? So
is that a federal regulation or is that a provincial thing? Like
it's federal. All trucks in all of Canada have to be 105. And then when you come into this, and then if you got an American truck coming into Canada, they have to buy, they don't have to have governors because obviously in the States it's done state by state.
Yeah.
But again, they have to abide by doing 105 kilometers an hour max.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah,
well,
it's very interesting. But anyways, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Kyle. That's a wrinkle I hadn't thought of. These limiters that are on some trucks that limit the speed, and now we're at a point where the speed is below the official speed limit. Hopefully that's going to change. It doesn't make sense if it doesn't. Gary, go ahead.
Hey, Polly. So did I hear this right now? I guess they're going to force people to drive 110 because, I mean, if some people are not comfortable with going faster, they might still stay at 105 or whatever.
Right.
Are they going to get ticketed for going too slow? And I think also comparing this to places in Europe and stuff like that, I don't think it really jives because people here don't know how to drive on a 3 or 4 lane highway.
Right.
They all get over to that left lane and they stick there no matter what speed they're doing.
That's what my father used to do all the time. Yeah. I'm passing people. What's the problem?
Right. So now you got people end up passing on the middle lane or the right lane, which I'm not sure if that's legal or not, but doesn't seem like a good idea to me.
Yeah, that's another angle I hadn't thought of. That some people might be comfortable at only 100. So, and I have heard of people getting tickets for driving too slow. Now, maybe it's because you're on a substance that you shouldn't be on that causes you to drive slow, but it has happened. John Doe, go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned you are a fair bit younger than many of your listening audiences, but you do know that the speed limit on the 401 used to be 70 miles an hour.
Now what does that transfer to kilometers?
About 115 or thereabouts. Okay, and this was back in the time of bias-ply tires and drum brakes. The seat belts were almost unheard of. Now we've got high-speed radial tires. We've got ABS systems. We've got all these safety features. We've got airbags, seat belts, crumple zones on vehicles, all designed to improve the survivability of a crash. And yet we've gone from 70 miles an hour down to 100 kilometers per hour. So I really think, this increasing it by 5-10 kilometers per hour, they need to make a substantial increase. Now, having said that, I don't want to see them going the no speed limit, because then you're going to get this kid who says, well, I'm a professional driver, I've been practicing on Grand Theft Auto on the video games, I know exactly what I'm doing. We can't have that. But the other thing is, it has to be consistent. I'll tell you a little story. I was running through Pennsylvania on my way to New Jersey.
That's a great drive, by the way. Pennsylvania, driving up the. Anyway, go ahead. I love the so scenic. Go ahead.
And it's like I think at that time it was like a 70 mile an hour speed limit. So of course, if it's 70 miles an hour, everybody's cruising along at about 75 or so, and then you hit the New Jersey state line. Okay, and the speed limit drops to 55. There's no sign saying "Welcome to New Jersey." There's a state trooper sitting on the highway waiting.
Waiting to catch you because you're going too fast.
Yeah. So you can't just say one stretch is going to be this speed and the next stretch is going to be that speed. Hey, maybe that's how the government intends to make up the money that they're losing on not putting license plates on cars.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, good point, John. Thanks for the call. We have a ton of calls on the line. If we don't get to you after the break, hang on the line after the news, because we do have our free phones with producer Paulie. So if we don't get to you before the news, we'll get to you after the news. And of course, we're welcoming your calls as well. Here come the numbers. It's the Mike Farwell Show on City News 570 and Rogers TV.
It's a give and take. Mike gives you a chance to call, and we get to hear your take. Call 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. More of the Mike Farwell Show after this.
This hour.
570. Simulcast on Rogers TV, Cable 20.
Producer Paulie in with you today on the Mike Farwell Show. Ontario to permanently set speed limits on some highway sections at 110 kilometers an hour. Is that welcome? Maybe you think it should be higher. Give us a call. Terry, go ahead.
Hey, Paulie. Hi again. Yeah, John Doe from Preston there, he made a lot of good points.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, we all know the unofficial speed limit on those big series highways, the 400 series highways, are usually 120 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, because they usually don't bother you if you're doing 120 or below that. But the thing I'm concerned, it should be more discretionary. For example, Toronto, there's no way you're going to go 110 or 100 even, because the speed limit there going through the city in the daytime is probably 60 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
Because it's all bumper to bumper.
Yeah.
And at nighttime, your vision is limited, your ability to see things ahead. So you don't want to go like 120, 130, 140 and have a deer dart out at you, because you could do a lot of damage or even kill yourself. I've done a couple of those in the past, and it's not pleasant. So I think we should just keep the speed as it is and just drive accordingly. In the open areas, maybe you can go a little faster because, it's more wide open. But, yeah, it should be more discretionary as opposed to having it regulated the way they're thinking. Thanks, Mark.
Great. Thanks a lot for the call, Terry. So Terry thinks that things should remain as it is. It might be safer, particularly at night. It's very difficult to see at night, too, of course. If it's raining, you can't even see the lines on the road. But the speed limit is also supposed to be for perfect driving conditions. You shouldn't be driving 100 kilometers an hour in a snowstorm. We all know that we need to slow down. Coming up, it is an open lines half hour. Anything you want to talk about, if you want to continue this topic on this speed limit, upping to 110, you're welcome to. We have a few calls on the line all right now, people who wanted to comment on that, so you can pick that up, or you can talk about anything else you want to talk about from 11:30 till noon. This is the Mike Farwell Show with producer Paul filling in on City News 570 and Rogers TV.
Hold that thought for a moment. We'll return with more of The Mike Farwell Show on City News 570. Simulcast on Rogers TV, Cable 20.
This hour of the Mike Farwell.
Traffic and weather. This is City News 570 everywhere.
It is 11:30, cloudy, -2, wind chill, -9. Good morning, I'm Paul McPhee with the City News 570 top story. A couple of traffic notes off the top. A Star 401 caller reports a flipped vehicle on the eastbound 401 at the Town Line Road Bridge. And the same caller reports a crash on the eastbound 401 approaching 6 North. Traffic is getting past that collision using the shoulder. A special weather statement remains in effect for Waterloo Region and surrounding areas. We've had all types of precipitation today, including rain, snow, ice pellets, and freezing rain. Environment Canada says when the temperature rises above freezing, it will completely transition over to rain later this afternoon. Ontario's housing minister is set to introduce legislation today aimed at increasing the province's housing supply. It comes after a housing affordability task force convened by the government released a report last month offering 55 recommendations, including a goal of building 1.5 million homes in 10 years. The UN Refugee Agency says more than 4 million people have left Ukraine since Russia launched its invasion 5 weeks ago, exceeding its worst-case scenario. Meantime, the International Organization for Migration reports more than 12 million people may be stranded in areas under attack or cannot leave because of security risks, the destruction of bridges and roads, and a lack of information about safe destinations and lodging. In sports, the Raptors hook up with the Timberwolves tonight in Toronto. That's at 7 o'clock on City News 570. Follow City News 570 on Twitter at City News KIT. News next at noon. I'm Paul McPhee, City News.
This show's far from over. Mike still has plenty to say. The Mike Farwell Show's continuing right now on City News 570. Simulcast on Rogers TV, Cable 20.
Producer Polly in with you today on the Mike Farwell Show. Mike is back tomorrow. This is a segment we started a few weeks ago called Free Phones with Farwell. Of course, we love the alliteration here on the Mike Farwell Show. I guess today it's renamed Free Phones with Producer Polly, but that's not quite as alliterative. So when Mike gets back next week, it'll be, again, renamed Free Phones with Farwell. So anything you want to talk about for the next 30 minutes is fair game. 519-570-2545. Out of town, 1-800-570-5715 and star 570. Norma, I believe, wants to comment on our previous topic of the speed limit increase. Norma, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I agree with the caller just prior to the news. Leave it at 100 and people will drive how they want to drive. Unfortunately, if you put it up to 110, then they're going to go even faster. And we've got some idiot who, even as your news stated, this flipped car, people don't drive to the conditions. Unfortunately, they don't reduce it. And so I think we should just leave it as it is. I'd like to ask Kyle to tell me what trucks. He must be an honest truck driver, because if these trucks have limiters, I am driving the 401 often, and there are a lot of trucks going over 105. So even if they don't change their limiter, maybe it's a good idea to keep them in the right-hand lane so cars can get past the trucks, because they aren't driving 105.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of the limiter thing on the truck, and of course that's been with us for a few years now. And next time I'm out on the 401 on a clear day, I'll take note of how fast some of the trucks are going. Perhaps, as Kyle suggested, they don't have this in the United States, and so United States truckers coming over to Canada are expected to limit themselves to 110 or 105. I think it was actually Kyle said, but not always. And I have met Kyle a couple of times. He's a great guy. Comes across to me as a very honest guy. So, yeah, Kyle is an honest truck driver, no doubt. Mary, go ahead.
Oh, hi. This is a subject that's dear to my heart. You hear, especially the police, pushing speed kills. Now, these little drivers in the far left lane, which should be the passing lane, they're sitting there way under, and they are the cause of a lot of the accidents. They think they're doing good, but they're forcing someone around them in one way or the other. They should be penalized more. I am in total agreement with your guest that it should be higher. Now, let's not forget, like, I haven't been driving at dusk or dark for at least 12 years. You have to be your own policeman. if you know you can't see that well, then don't go out.
Yeah.
And you know, but back to the cars, like, I never have bald tires. I've got everything in ship shape.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are causing these accidents could be, I don't know, disrespect to them, but they're driving little cars with little tires and they're bald.
Yeah.
And they're not driving to what the weather should be.
Yeah, the conditions, yeah.
And they're slipping and sliding. But to me, with all the bells and whistles and good tires, I can drive a bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right, yeah. Thanks for the call, Mary. Yeah, I wonder if each lane maybe could have its own speed limit. Maybe for the right-hand lane, you keep it at 100. For the middle lane, you put it at 115, maybe. And then, I don't know, the left lane is the passing lane. But as I mentioned earlier, my father, when we used to drive to Toronto to go to a Blue Jay game or whatnot, he would spend a lot of time in that left lane because he would drive, 120, 125. And I'm like, Dad, that's supposed to be the passing lane. He goes, I am. I'm passing people. So what's the problem? This is our free phones with Farwell segment. Anything you want to talk about for the next 30 minutes is fair game. 519-570-2545. Out of town, 1-800-570-5715. And star 570, hands free. Norm, go ahead.
No, it's Norma.
Oh, Norma. Sorry about that. I have Norm on the screen. Okay.
That's okay. My dad's name was Norm, and I got called Norm quite a bit. But anyway, 2 comments. I couldn't get in yesterday. 2 comments about yesterday's topics. Daylight savings time.
Yes.
I know everybody loves having light until like 10 o'clock almost in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
But do they realize that if we are on permanent daylight savings time, in the wintertime, we would not get daylight until 9 a.m.
Yeah, I've thought about that, yeah.
School, in the dark. There's been several countries who have tried daylight savings times, the U.S. included, and they've gone back to the switch. So I just don't think it's going to work. But anyway, that's my comment.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yesterday was groundbreaking for me because I agreed with Rush.
Uh-oh, on what topic?
Yeah, on the child care. He was commenting about how broken our system is with that the parents can't afford to stay home and raise their kids, which would be much better off being raised by parents in the home at the younger age instead of having to go to work. And I totally agree. This $10 child care system is great for those who can't afford childcare and have to work. But it doesn't encourage parents to sacrifice and only live on one income with the other parents staying home and raising the children. And I think that's a shame.
Thanks for the call, Norma. So Norma commenting on a couple of things there. I think we were talking about it yesterday, the Ontario's announcement of the $10 a day childcare. And also commenting on daylight saving time. I think that was on Tuesday we talked about that. I mentioned that because during the winter, there in the dead of winter, mid-December, just before the days start getting longer again, in mid-December, if you're driving in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, particularly if it's a cloudy day, it's still pretty dark at that time. And now that I've thought about it a little longer, I think I would rather have the light in the morning. But maybe I'm biased because I'm a morning person. I get up early, so it's nice to wake up to the sunrise. John, go ahead. John?
Oh, I think it's Don, not John. D is a duck.
Oh, Don.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
Okay, Producer Polly?
Yep.
Do I call you PP or not?
Call me whatever you want.
Okay, what I'm calling about is about the buses.
Yes, the electric buses, yeah.
Now, I've been around here for over 90 years, so in Waterloo all my life, so I know all about the old streetcars and about the switch over from streetcars to electric buses. Back in 1949, I believe it was, on New Year's Day, that's when the new trolley buses were supposed to start running. And they were powered with 2 wires rather than before the streetcars had 1 wire and the ground was in the railroad tracks on the ground. And the day it was supposed to start, it was a freezing rain, and it was and I was working on King Street in Waterloo, and so they had to go down the street with a whole bunch of trucks with trestles on the back and with baseball bats knocking the ice, which was about 1 inch thick.
Wow, yeah.
On all the wires, so it couldn't get started that day. So that was an interesting start. And then the following thing is about the new buses. It says people were saying it's a problem because they can't run all day and then they have to go back to the barn to get recharged.
Right. Yeah, battery charge time. Yeah.
Well, that's not the way it would work at all, really.
Okay.
The new buses can have a charging station, say, about every 10 stops on the bus line.
I thought about that, yeah.
Yeah, and this has been done before, and so they just drive up, and there's 2 electrodes that they drive into, and then they sit there for, say, an extra 5 or 10 minutes, and that recharges the batteries somewhat. So they keep doing that on those stops, and that works pretty good. And when they go downhill, they're supposed to have a recharge, so that when they're going downhill, it generates electricity and recharges the batteries. Now, another thing that can be done, and I might say that I've been driving an electric golf cart for over 60 years myself.
Yeah.
And those are the old kinds of batteries.
Yep.
But on that, one thing that they could do, and which I did, was I had a small motor generator, like a gas-powered generator, and I would have that running all the time, and it would be recharging the batteries so that I could just keep going all the time.
Right.
And so they could put that on a new bus and have a little engine running all the time to keep recharging the batteries that way. So they could just keep running. And
yeah, that's interesting stuff. Thanks a lot for the call, Don.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. This is our Free Phones with Farwell segment on the Mike Farwell Show. Producer Paulie in with you today. Anything you want to talk about for the next 15 minutes or so till noon, 519-570-2545. Out of town, 1-800-570-5715 and star 570. I think Don is a new voice. I don't remember hearing Don call before. Don, call back sometime on City News 570. Love to hear you. Mark, go ahead.
Morning, Paulie. Matthew scored his 49th last night.
Yeah, we played the clip earlier. Yeah.
Nice. I heard that. And he's got 3 games to go to get 50, and I'm sure he'll get it. But I've been wondering, thinking about it, who was the last Leaf to score 50 goals in a regular season? Do you know?
I'm going to have to say Doug Gilmour. I don't know, Mark. Are you quizzing me? Do you know the answer?
I don't know I'm going to take a guess. I think it was Rick Vive.
Okay.
But I could be wrong, but that was a long time ago, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, Mark. I don't follow the stats that closely. Maybe during the break I'll look it up to see the last Leaf who scored 50 goals.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Great, thanks. Or if anybody listening knows the answer, that'd be great too. Give us a call. Okay, so we have Rush on the line. Rush, go ahead.
Yeah, Norma's a really smart lady. She just gave me another idea too, which is that, because I was only thinking about it from the standpoint of we do need this $10 a day daycare thing to help families out. But now Norma has me thinking about something else, which is in addition to that, the government should provide subsidy for a parent who chooses to stay home with their child instead. Give parents, we're always talking about we want both parents to have the option to take paternity leave, maternity leave, all that sort of stuff. Well, give them an actual true incentive to do such. Make it so that you can either choose the $10 a day daycare, or you can stay home, raise your child in those critical early years, and get a payout. And again, it's not that I'm for free money. It's that I think that the system is so broken right now that there's not really another option.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. But people have talked about the school voucher programs where each student family gets an amount of money, and you could take that to whatever school you want, whether it's a public school, a private school, maybe someone in the neighborhood is homeschooling. So the money follows the child, so you could choose what kind of education you want your child to get. 519-570-2545 out of town, 1-800-570-5715 and star 570. It is our free phones with Farwell segment, although today it's free phones with producer Polly. Anything you want to talk about from now till noon is fair game. This is the Mike Farwell Show with producer Polly filling in on City News 570 and Rogers TV.
You've got something to say. Now it's time to say it on the Mike Farwell Show. Call 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715.
This hour of the Mike Farwell Show is...
This is the Mike Farwell Show on City News 570. Simulcast on Rogers TV, Cable 20.
519-570-2545. Out of town, 1-800-570-5715. And star 570 is our free phones with Farwell, although today it's free phones with producer Polly. Farwell, by the way, is back tomorrow. I do have an answer to the last Leaf to score 50 goals. I'll mention it if we don't get it on the phones beforehand. Rob, go ahead. Rob?
Hello.
What do you got for us today? You're on the air.
Yeah, you were talking about daylight saving time and standard time.
Yep.
Now, if you go standard time, you realize the sun's going to be coming up around 4 o'clock in the morning.
That early? Well, yeah, I guess in the peak of summer, yeah, maybe you might be right.
No, I'm not. I guarantee you I'm right. It'll be coming up at 4 in the morning. That really doesn't serve anybody, does it?
Yeah, maybe not. About 6 or 7 years ago, my wife and I took a trip out to Boston. We drove out there for a couple of days, and I woke up at about 4:30 one morning, tossing and turning, and it was light out enough at that point to, go throw a football around or something.
There you go. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now one more thing, sweet mother of pearl. Can anybody teach people how to pack a blue box properly so I'm not picking up their garbage on a windy day?
Did that happen to you today, Rob?
Well, not today. It's not windy, but I mean, on Wednesdays, and I'm out there picking up pizza boxes and plastic bottles, and you name it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they couldn't design a blue box with a lid on it, same as those green box. It was a green garbage bin.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
We should patent that, pal, and we'll both retire.
Right. Well, thanks for the call, Rob. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Sometimes on a windy day, the garbage ends up all over the street. Dave, go ahead. What do you have for us today?
Hi, am I on the air?
Yeah, you are.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. A long-time listener, first-time caller. Just wanted to touch base with, you had a caller there a few minutes ago that called in about these people that sit on the highway in the high lane going slow. It seems to me every single time, and thank God I don't go on the 401 that much, but when I do, every time I pass them, it's a young driver. And I always think they're the ones that should know better because they're the ones that had the teaching most recent.
Yeah, they just took their course a couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah. So a funny story, my sister and I were on the way to the cottage one day, this is a few years ago, and I said to her, you're doing 100 in the high lane. She goes, well, that's what the speed limit is. I said, I think you're supposed to move over. So we were getting ugly looks, and I just kept slouching back in the seat a little more each time. Well, this one guy drives up beside us, puts his window down, and whips a banana at the windshield. So it smears all the way across the windshield. But the irony was, she got off the 401 at Newcastle, and she still did 100, and she got a speeding ticket.
Wow.
I thought that was kind of like divine justice, kind of.
Yeah. Wow.
Of course, I won't mention her name. I'd get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for the call, Dave. And
Thanks
don't be
very
afraid
much for taking the call. Thank you.
And don't be afraid to call again sometime. Love to hear new voices on the air.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks a lot. So we had a call earlier. Mark was wondering about the last Leaf to score 50 goals because Austin Matthews scored 49 last night. And, of course, one more would make it 50. The Leafs have 3 more games left in the season for Austin Matthews to do that. So Mark mentioned Rick Vive. He was the first Leaf to do it, but not the most recent. In fact, Rick Vive scored more than 50 goals 3 times. Scored 54 in the 1981-82 season. Scored 51 in the 1982-83 season and 52 in the 83-84 season. Did it 3 years in a row. After that was Gary Lehman. He scored 51 in the 1989-90 season. And the last Leaf to score more than 50 goals, drum roll please, Dave Andreychuk. I thought it might have been about Doug Gilmour, although Dave Andreychuk did play on the same team as Doug Gilmour. Dave Andreychuk scored 53 53 goals in the 1993-94 season. And that's, Dave Andrechuk, the last Leaf to score more than 50 goals. Austin Matthews could pull it off in the next game. Do they play tonight? I'm not sure if they play tonight or not, but the Leafs have 3 games left to try and score 50 goals for Austin Matthews. That would be very, very cool. Well, Mike Farwell is back tomorrow, and I'm going to be back answering the phone. So if you do call into this station on a regular basis, you will hear my voice when you first pick up the phone starting tomorrow. And I don't know when I'm sure I'll be filling in at some point. I'm not on the schedule at this point, but we'll see what happens. So it's been an interesting show. We started off with the internet and telephone voting coming to Woolwich Township starting this fall. We talked to Jeff Smith, Director of Corporate Services and clerk for Woolwich Township. He was saying that 81% of people who voted electronically last time, because they did an experiment last time, 81% said that they would do it again. At 10 a.m., Grand River Transit's first electric buses will hit the road in 2023. They're going to be buying the buses in the next few months here, hopefully, and those buses should be on the road in 2023. 11 buses to start as a pilot project, and we'll see where it goes from there. At 10:30, what's on Wednesday? Celebrating 100 years of the Rotary Club in this event. Again, it's called Game for Life Youth Day. Teach youth about financial literacy. You can find out more about that at rotarykw.com. That event's coming up on Saturday, May 14th, absolutely free to attend. And we finished off talking about speed limits going up here in Ontario on some Ontario highways to 110 kilometers an hour. Kitchener Today is next with one of my favorite radio people, Larry Fedoruk. That's coming up next from noon to 3. This has been the Mike Farwell Show with producer Paulie filling in on City News 570 and Rogers TV.
CKGL-AM Kitchener, broadcasting live from the Boardwalk. Breaking news, traffic, and weather. When you need to know, keep it on City News 570.
This hour of the Mike Farwell Show is...
about what they're doing in the community, and we get to experience what actually is trending. I've been really lucky, I think, to meet these inspiring people. It's a show to actually have fun and engage with people. The show is based on fun.
Let people get excited about junk, what?
And inspiration. Watch #Trending with Aaliyah Thursdays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Are you interested in learning TV production? Have you ever wanted your own TV show? There's an opportunity waiting for you at Rogers TV. On Friday, April 8th, visit us on location at the Sleeman Center and find out how you can get involved with Rogers TV. From working on our OHL broadcasts and daily shows to pitching and producing your own show, discover how you can be part of community TV. Details at rogerstv.com.
This is Rogers TV.